Shannon, I am so glad that you are here today, that you are part of the Empowered Author podcast. You were just sharing before we pressed record what resource you've seen this is to be for you and for others in your life. And it's just, I love having people that are so meaningful in my own kind of journey be a part of this. And I really think our connection is not by happenstance, it's by a God sequence. Isn't that what you called it?
Divine appointment.
A divine appointment. He does do those things, And I kind of think like your book was also a divine appointment in your husband's life. And anyway, so yeah, I'm just so glad that you're here. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you truly for asking me. I have loved your podcast for myself. I love sharing it with other authors. And I know that you produce the highest quality content and you're very selective about your guests. So I feel very honored talking to you today.
You're so sweet. Well, I knew when we first met, I'm like, she's going to be on. Shannon's coming. But I feel like you knew. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
I knew when we first met that I would be working with you. I thought I heard you the very first time on a mastermind. And I thought, this girl and we're going to talk. She's going to help me. There's going to be a connection here. We just knew it.
Well, I was going to say, we have to go back to go forward, I think. And I think it would be nice for listeners today to hear a little bit about how we did meet, because it was beautiful and very emotional for me, but very beautiful. We were at this writer's retreat. And so as with most people, this is just good for authors out there to realize, usually we are about 1 or 2 or 3 degrees away from the people that need to be a part of our lives and that we can make the biggest impact with. And just so happened that the writing coach who you have utilized and I have utilized had a writer's retreat that we were both faculty at. And we met the first day and I was like, she looks so lovely. I'm looking forward to get to know all these people. And then we slowly started talking and it's just crazy. I want to know from your perspective what that was like.
Well, I have to go back a step before because I felt like I knew you when I came to the writer's retreat, since I had already heard you share on a mastermind. And that's when my radar perked up and I was like, this is a girl I want to know more about. I'd already been to your website, looked at some of your services. And then when I heard you were going to be at the retreat, I thought, I need to get a chance to talk to her. It was so cool. And, the lesson in that is, again, we never know. With every podcast we listen to, every class that we go to, every mastermind group that we're a part of, there are going to be connections, sometimes very unexpected, that come out of it and take us along a path. So yeah, when I got to schedule some time with you at the retreat, I do look back at that time. It was very special, sharing our stories, hearing yours, you hearing mine. There are some similarities and overlap there. And I called my husband on the way home and I said, I need more time with Stephanie.
I just got coach chills. Yeah, it was like, I think it was the second day of the retreat. We had met on the first day. And when the mastermind that you were talking about, it's not crazy interactive in the sense that I share stuff. Some people ask questions, but you're right. I don't know who listens to it in live time or who listens to it in retrospect. I don't know any of that. And so I didn't know you, even though I wish I would have earlier, because we're now buddies. I consider you now a lifelong friend, not just some random person. You're more like a buddy girl. We're buddies. But anyway, so the second day I walked in and we just got to chatting for something. He said, hey, can we chat sometime today? And I'm sitting here thinking, this is Catholic guilt in me. I'm like, what did I do wrong? Yes, we could chat. What did I do? What did I do wrong? And then quickly you were like, I've got, my book. And I'm like, yay. And that's when I started to uncover, we just talked about divine appointments, that God has a reason for things. And as we started chatting, I'll never forget, getting all comfy. I took my shoes off. We sat in this little, that's what I love about retreats. You just get real comfy on these couches in this hidden space of this beautiful cabin we were staying at or having the retreat at. And we just started sharing. And I think I've shared with some of the listeners about my own health diagnosis, which I received a year ago, that had begun neurologically and evolved into a hypersomnia / narcolepsy diagnosis. And as I started to learn your story, like, I think I almost like literally had to pick my jaw up off the ground, because the things with your story and your husband's story, I could relate. And as I'm hearing it from your perspective as a caregiver and an outsider looking in, I'm thinking about my husband and my own diagnosis. And as I'm hearing what you were sharing about your husband and what he went through, I'm sitting here thinking, yep, I understand exactly what that is. Oh my gosh. Yep. I haven't been able to put a word to that. And the synergy and understanding both gave me personally a level of peace and feeling seen, but also comfort, both in the end result with your husband, but also the underlying thread of it all. And I don't know if I could dance around the topic anymore without asking you to tell more about your all story and your book, because it is one thing. It is one thing, no pun intended with the title, but it is one of the books that I have sat down and read cover to cover and couldn't stop. So tell us a little bit about your family's story and your beautiful book.
Awesome. It just goes to show the power of story.
Yeah.
Which is why we write our books. And I always had a dream of writing a book. This was not the book that was on the radar to write, but it really is a nightmare that turned into a gift. And it was so bizarre and so life-changing that we couldn't keep it to ourselves. So we had to share it with others. So yeah, our beautiful book. I have it here.
Gorgeous.
One Thing Remains. I love it. I love it so much. So One Thing Remains, one couple's traumatic encounter with amnesia and their life-changing journey to restoration. The Cliff Notes version is that in the spring of 2019, my husband, who was a senior pastor, full-time pastor at our church, ended up with amnesia. I thought he was having a heart attack, but when all the dust settled, heart was fine, brain was fine, but he could not remember the last 8 to 13 years of our life. And the doctors couldn't find a single thing wrong with him. So they said that most likely the brain shut down due to years of cumulative stress. And we had been living the busy life that everybody else is living. I think there's a uniqueness to some of the burnout and stress that comes from ministry families that we were experiencing. And we weren't paying attention to the red flags that our body and our relationships were throwing up at us. Pay attention. And we ignored them. And the brain finally said, David's brain, if you don't pay attention to me, I'm going to shut you down. Yep. He couldn't remember our home, our dog. He thought our boys who were preteen were still in car seats. Didn't know where we banked. Didn't know what side of the bed he slept on. So many things that I had to introduce him to people and places. And it was a long 26 days, one of the hardest of my life. Until you take your memories away, you have no idea how much we depend on them. And when any part of your brain is missing, life changes in a very dramatic way. So he miraculously got his memories back in an instant, 26 days later, and we described that in the book. And then we took a couple months after that to process all that had just happened. And we turned our lives upside down. We moved, we downsized, we changed how we approach life and to-do lists and priorities and family and what's more important. We really had those tough conversations and did surgery on our life because we did not, if we needed a sign from God, you need to change life.
Yeah.
And so it would be very irresponsible to go back to living the way we did before. So there were 5 lessons that we learned from amnesia. And we talk about each one of those as well as tell our amnesia story in the book. Our goal is to help other people find that the life of true meaning and thriving, healing, and wellness without having to lose their own mind in the process.
Well, this is a topic, though, so many people, myself included, try to muddle through and forge 100 miles per hour ahead. And then inevitably something will stop you. Sometimes it's yourself that stops you, like, not so much your brain, but like something like I'm rereading a book. I reread this particular book every year, The Big Leap. And it talks about upper limit. Have you read it, Shannon? If not, you put it on that list. Add it to your list. it talks about having upper limit issues and how we ourselves create hindrances to we create our own glass ceilings and understanding that. So I was, reading about this and knowing we do it to ourselves. We sabotage ourselves. Sometimes situations sabotage us, but the proof is in the pudding. Stress does so much more than what we know. I was writing in my newest book about how it compounds and it just keeps adding. You think you've got moved through it. Good try, my friend. You haven't. It just keeps coming. And when you talked about how his brain like kind of laughed, and then shut down, when my symptoms started, I could only explain my brain kind of irregularity or abnormalities with like the blue screen of death on the computer. Like your computer is just like got an issue. You won't reboot it. You won't do the update. You don't follow what it's saying. And one day it's like, you wanted to work today, Stephanie, but you don't get to, and I'm going to close it until you take it to the shop, right? And so when I couldn't put words to my symptoms, I just kept saying, my brain gets to a point where it will stop and I have to go to sleep for hours upon end, right? And so hearing what you were saying about the amnesia, it's proof that, and it's a reminder that what we have today, we may not have tomorrow. What we think we have today, we may not have tomorrow. And if we don't care for ourselves and our bodies and our minds and the vessel we've been given today, we may not have it tomorrow. And, your family went through a very painful but eye-opening experience, realizing, kind of going through that. And the vulnerability in your book, as I'm reading through it all, I'm thinking, oh my goodness. I can only imagine what David was experiencing with the high levels of confusion, because sometimes my condition will do that. And then on your side, the depths of loss that you are experiencing, losing what the husband you thought you had and the life you thought you had. And yet you had a thread that connected everything. And that's the underlying beauty of your story. I'm getting Coach Hill's just talking about it and about the importance of, remaining deep in your faith and close to the word, because that will be forever a focus and a thread to reweave your life back together.
And thank you for all of that. There is, we did learn that life is fragile.
Yeah.
The brain is fragile. I'm a registered nurse, but I had never thought about brain health before until I had to. And the brain needs some TLC and needs some attention. And we're going in this culture, in the Western culture, we are way too focused on production and busyness. And I love production. I wear that as a badge of honor. I love being busy. And, when someone says, how are you? Oh, busy and stressed. We say that with pride, all of us. And it just is not worth it. And it takes its toll. The book is very vulnerable. When we were recording our audio book, David and I together in this small booth, and we're rereading it. Like, oh my goodness, I can't believe we put some of this stuff in the book. This is like opening up to my journal, and we bring you through our marriage and the difficulties that we experienced. But that is also the power of a story. When we can get to the place of being raw and vulnerable, that's when you reach others. And that's why so many have a response and a true reaction when they read our book, because they felt a connection to it. The last thing I'll say about our book is there is one thing that David didn't forget, and that's why it's called One Thing Remains. And that will be, as you alluded to, a lifelong lesson that has changed my life.
And mine too. So I had a very intimate experience with Jesus. And I'm going to get emotional myself. And I didn't have the scripture to connect to it until I read your book. And I remember texting you. I think I was like, are you kidding? And since then, usually a couple times a week, you will find on the inside wrist of my right hand, since I'm left-handed, capital D, 31:8. And it's a reminder of a piece of scripture in Deuteronomy that says, I will never leave you. I will never forsake you. I'm always here. And I think their story has power. I think we read books and stories for a reason. There's a reason the author expects to make the impact, and then there's a bigger reason. And I walked away from that with a reminder of things I need to do, of how I need to manage my own stress, because stress will create an impact on your life. That busyness we talk about is not healthy. It's not good. And when I think of book marketing, I mean, not to go to that yet, but when we talk about book marketing, I think, well, actually we can, because when we chatted and you were telling me, I said, what are you doing? You told me all the things. I'm like, why are you doing all the things? It's because busyness has this feeling of success and movement and momentum. But if you aren't focused in your busyness, all that will happen is you will lose touch with people that matter. You will lose touch with yourself. You will prioritize the wrong things and not prioritize the right things. And everything you're doing to create margin will somehow eat it up. And so busyness in and of itself is not a healthy thing, and it's not impactful. It's the type of impact I talk about, like you throw a rock in a window type of impact. It's not the empowered impact of an author impact that keeps on giving. And so I walked away from the chat because you and I did have a deep chat that day. And then we've had the opportunity to have deep chats with this also reminder, even for myself, that busyness does not make me well.
And the word that you used with me that really resonated was, you said you're doing a lot of churning.
Yeah. Yep.
And that churning, so that indicates there's striving, there's movement, there's activity. But is the churning, that should be the energy that then produces an end product.
Yes. And
the end product was not what I was going for. And you're like, well, then this is all just churning action. And we need to really evaluate, what are you doing? Now, I knew that our book, David and I co-authored it. I knew that it has potential to reach so many people and really make a big impact, but I wasn't seeing the impact happen like I had envisioned it. And, but I was doing all the things. I was busy with marketing, quote unquote.
You were doing great things.
But there wasn't action. So being able to even stop and evaluate that. And we can get so emotionally tied to the actions that we're doing. Just like in our life, we were emotionally tied to all the things we were involved in, and it was killing us. So having you to be able to so honestly and candidly question, why are you doing this? What's the value of this? What's the purpose? Where is this leading you? Does this bring you joy? Yeah. It was awesome.
Yeah, well, it was funny, the word churn. I don't know why, but I think of like back in the day when people would churn at a grain mill, okay? And you just keep doing it and there's no end in sight and it's exhausting to the person. And the person churning doesn't always see the end result and the outcome. And so when we sat down that day, it was just so much fun. But as I started to uncover what you've been doing, I thought, man, this girl knows her stuff. She's doing all these things. And then I started asking deeper questions. I found that the question why is a great guide, because we finally got to this last why. And you were like, I don't know why. And I'm like, okay, so is this action leading to this result? And so we started to unpack that. And I think it starts, as we started with our conversation, what would success look like? And is what you're doing getting you there? And so we uncovered several things of marketing potential that you could do. And we also uncovered several things you could stop doing, or at least pare back, unless it brought you joy. See, I'm a big believer that sometimes things bring you joy and you don't know why they do. Well, that's okay, right? For a while. But if you do something, even if it brings you joy today, and it doesn't have a tangible outcome in the long run, you will no longer have joy with it. And, we had great conversations about money, I don't like the word money. I think money is, I hate talking about it. I hate asking about it. I hate, I hate everything that comes with the concept of money. However, money in and of itself is not bad. There's nothing bad with money. we have the ability with making money or creating money. All it is an exchange of energy. We have the ability to help people, to serve communities, to give back, to pour into what we need to keep ourselves whole. Like, it is not a bad thing. What people do with it could be bad. So we had a lot of conversation about money and about the churn you were doing and its alignment with money. And I remember, I think, sharing with you, follow the money trail. And it's not because I want you to be anybody, you or any author out there, to be an author that is just doing what you're doing for money. That's not what I mean. It is because I know when you are being poured into, when that exchange of energy is giving back to this life-giving gift you give, money just happens to be the way that some people do it, you will have more energy to do more and give more. But if you're doing it and nobody is showing the type of ROI that you are wanting, there's something deeper.
Yes. And you help to show that money is it's a positive feedback loop.
Yeah.
And it does feel good. Okay. So I'm happy to give and bless and share, but at some point, my time is valuable and what I'm doing needs to matter. Right. And one way that we evaluate that is it generating revenue?
Yeah.
And my husband had been telling me, he still says, how come I've been telling you for years and then you meet with Stephanie for one day and you finally get it? So
it was because of the food that we had at lunch. That was what it is. Food was so good.
It was lunch. You just didn't take me to the right place for lunch, apparently. But you've been saying
too close. Yeah, you're too close. He was too close.
Yes, truly. And I had been spending money on all kinds of things that I thought, this is it. This is the missing link. And I loved that you said that is not producing this expenditure. It's not producing an ROI. But over here, let's shift this in alignment with who you are, in alignment with what your book is, in alignment with the framework that this book can help provide for your business. And we generate revenue over here. Again, I'm not doing it for the money, but it's a way that we can evaluate the effectiveness of our book and our message.
Well, we took a step back, and let me add in, you and I got the opportunity to spend the full day together. We did a VIP day together. And so that's when we talk about lunch. We went to my favorite little restaurant here. We're in the country where I live, but we had a really great day together, just chatting. But we started with understanding for you with your book and what you wanted the book to do in your world. How will this give you life? And we started to uncover the margin you had before we did anything else, right? Like, I remember you talking about some stuff with your children and how, all these things that are meaningful to you that unfortunately in a business, an authorpreneur business or any business, can get brushed under the rug very easily. And we started there. And then we started to go backwards, and we walked away, like you said, a framework on your business. On things you can do, your target audiences. We talked about, oh my gosh, like we have other book ideas. I mean, it is, I probably have, like, Corey, my husband, could tell at the end of that day, because I was on cloud 9 energy from what we were able to do together. And I am chomping at the bits to see you bring it all to fruition, because you have this. And this is, I think, proof. And I want to get your thoughts. When you write a book, it is the beginning of a business, if you want it to be. Now, it will already be its own business because you have to deal with sales tax and stuff, right? Like, it's already something. But if you want it to be a door opener to something bigger, that's where you just have to do a moment of reflection to evaluate, what do you think? What value do you see? And what are people going to invest in? So from your perspective, what was some of your favorite kind of takeaways from the type of impact work we did together?
My husband can probably say that the same thing, that when I came home that day, I was on cloud 9. In fact, he took me to dinner that night, and he has a little ADD, and so sometimes it's hard for him to focus as I'm talking about something. But he was so sweet. He stayed focused as I went through all of it. I was just blown away. So I think here are a couple of thoughts. One is determining who the target audience really was and is for me. You know, when David and I wrote the book, we wrote it as a couple, and we kind of had an envision of how we thought the book path was going to go. And 2 years after, I'm evaluating, like, that didn't really go the direction we had expected, so we had to pivot. And you were able to so brilliantly ask the right questions and be perceptive about areas where I had success, successful speaking events or successful courses that I had developed, and really drill down to figure out who are the people that need to hear the message that I want to share. That, I think, was one of the ways we started our day, and it was very powerful. I had this big broad umbrella of who I knew my target audience was, but you were able to help define it so clearly. It's made a really big difference. It's a foundational starting point. Also, putting together a business framework. You know, we were at a place where I thought, do I keep churning an effort, or do I just put the book on the shelf and say that was a nice ride, and if someone asks me about it, I'll bring it up again? And just figuring out, it was a fork in the road, across in the road. And you were able to help me put such a meaningful, business framework together that I could get excited about and think, okay, in the few hours that I have each week to really devote to this business, I could get excited about doing this. This is who I'm created to be in this season of life, and this is the message that I have to give the world. And I remember thinking, I think I even said it to you that day, because I know you meet with all kinds of clients and nonfiction authors that have topics that range from such a wide variety of topics. And how you are able to understand each unique person and the message and the audience and their world truly blew me away. I felt like you knew the world that I needed to speak to. You knew who needed to hear my message. You understood it, and you put yourself there in such a powerful way, and were able to make big strategic suggestions and recommendations. And then the business framework that you put together afterwards. I mean, a 60+ page customized document with Google Docs with little drop downs where I can click started or not started or in progress or completed.
No, because who doesn't like complete button, girl? I like complete buttons.
I'm all about it. I've created new Google documents since then now, and I'm like, get that drop down in there. That was awesome to take the whole day and put it in there. It was worth every penny that I spent. I can't wait to get the next one on the books to do the next step. I had a lot of takeaways from the day. It was. I don't want to sound cheesy or trite, so I mean this with all sincerity. It was a life-changing experience.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so that makes my day. That I have shared in my current book, Make Your Author Impact, that author impact is really hard to quantify and qualify and know. And so to hear stuff like that, knowing that what you're doing has changed somebody, I think at the end of the day, that's as humans, that is at the heart of something we would love to. It's a part of a legacy, something that I think, whether we can articulate that or not, we want to do. And so thank you just for saying that. That means so much. But it was truly a joy. Part of the process that we go through, or I go through over here, is every author that comes through our pipeline, I read the books. Like, I read them and I take notes and highlight and pull out stuff and get excited about it. And even if some of the books touch me intimately and some are a bit more transactional on my end because it's not something that maybe I understand completely, the book talks to me. I know it sounds really silly, but the book tells me from the marketing lens, like, what is it that what the value is and where it could go. And, I very clearly remember reading your book going, oh my gosh, I know what she needs to do because I need it. Like, I need you to do this for me. I'm selfish over here, Shannon. I need you to go down that path for me. But I think when we're really close to it, we can't see what our key differentiator is. And I mean, you have beautiful and overwhelming life stories and experiences that have shaped you to be beautifully, wonderfully, fearfully made for exactly what you're supposed to be doing now. And just having you come with such an open mind to our experience, I think was a win-win. I had a ball. I can't wait for our next time together too. But I had even more fun seeing your flame be reignited. And it's living proof that a book always has life in it. Your story always has life. It does not have a shelf life. It always has life. It will not go out of style. It will not mold and you have to toss in the garbage. It's not a banana, people. It's not a banana. It is something that you can breathe into. And sometimes you need help to see that because you're too close. And other times you just need someone to tell you to stop feeling like you have to do all the things, to free up the mental space to do the right things.
So well said. I remember when I first got there and you told me that you showed me how you had read through the book and you had your notes and you had underlined, and your husband had taken that and had put into the Google document different topics for blog posts, or you'd already typed out good quotes that I could use for social media. I just felt very understood.
Yeah.
I felt very seen. And you knew me, you knew the book, you knew the message, you were very intuitive to all of that. And you lit the flame. So.
Well is a good word to say, because wellness is at the heart of you, and wellness is about your story, and wellness is something that our world needs. Every woman, every person needs a reminder that now, as we head into, when we're recording this in December prior to the new year, but as we head into the new year, whenever you hear this and you feel like you need to get healthy, you need to get focused, maybe all you need is to be well. And the first step in that journey is actually, Shannon, what I think you did. It was making the confirmation that you're ready to be well. You're ready to do this. You're ready to listen. You're ready to move forward. You are ready to make an impact. You have to own that awareness is the first step of being able to change anything. And so you were doing beautiful stuff. You were headed down a beautiful path, a divine appointment inspired journey that is continuing to be shaped among that. But allowing me the opportunity to be a part of it is something like truly I will never forget. And I'm just so daggone grateful for not only your friendship, but our ability and for my ability to learn from you as you navigate this. I can't wait to see where you go, girl. Your author impact is going far and wide, and the world needs this.
Amen. And you've got me started on the next book. I've been sitting down and starting to write on the next book, which I had thought would be several years down the road. But it became clear as we met what the next step was. And that's what I wanted. I knew that there's a lot of possibilities. I'm not doing the right thing currently. There's another next step that I just couldn't grasp.
Yeah.
And I am so thankful that our paths crossed in some different and unique ways. And it's going to move forward.
I love it. I was listening to on Facebook, how they have those reels now of TikTok stuff. Okay. So I'm not very cool to be in the TikTok space, but I do enjoy a reel or two in Facebook. And there's a comedian that I follow, and she said this funny joke. And she said, "Do you know why people in their 20s are skinny?" And I'm like, "Why?" Like what? She goes, "Well, they haven't developed their gut yet, which is why their intuition is not as good as the older you get, because they don't have their gut to rely on." And I'm not saying that for either you or I, but I'm saying it as a reminder that if your intuition is telling you that maybe there's something, like I have found, if it's really hard to do the next step, I think it's because the next step's not ready yet. I think it's because there is something that needs to happen before that next step. That's your intuition. That's God. That's your gut. Call it whatever you want, saying, why can't I move forward? Am I holding back? Am I the problem? Am I a gatekeeper? Have I created a limiting belief or a glass ceiling for myself? Or is there literally something that is needed to get to this next place? And until that happens, the next place may not open. So anyways, that's a good reminder of that and our intuition.
It is, and I think parallels between what we teach in our book as far as how to identify stressors and move past them. I see parallels between what I do with women and helping them be well when they're ready and when they're hungry. And then what you also do with helping people along the journey when we're starting to get stuck, we need an extra counselor out there to help us evaluate what's going on, make the changes, and move on. But if we aren't willing to evaluate, if we're not willing to do the work and make the changes, if we don't really truly want to be well, we're going to stay in the same spot.
Yeah.
But for those people that are ready, it's like when the student is ready, the teacher will appear.
Yes.
That quote that comes. And there are counselors and experts and coaches that are available when someone's ready to take the next step. And I'm thrilled that I did with you.
Thank you for being here today. And I am just excited for people to read your book, for people to follow you. You have big things coming, and I can't wait to watch them. And so people should have their binoculars on and be watching you closely, because this girl is going somewhere. And it's because you have seen and had an experience of something that I don't believe happened on purpose, a very unfortunate, horrific experience on purpose, but you have determined that it can happen for purpose, and you have refined yourself, your family, and your life through it, because God was forging you and framing and molding you so that you could help others. And that's what emPact is all about. So thank you for coming on today, for sharing a little bit about your author emPact and how we were able to just be part of it. I'm just so excited and proud of you, my friend.
Thank you, Stephanie. And when I think of you, another word that comes to mind is just a cheerleader. And for authors, sometimes we can feel kind of lonely and out there and like no one understands us. And I really found in you someone who believed in me and believed in our story and was able to cheer us on. So thank you.
Rah, rah, shishkumbah, go Shannon. That's my best cheerleading, but no, thank you. You're so sweet. You're so sweet.